So what I need to share with you guys here is never underestimate the importance of standing up and playing. It should be a regular part of your routine. Now, if you aspire to be the kind of guitar player that is going to be playing live in a band situation, on stage, then you need to be able to stand up and play because you're not going to be sat down. You're just not. I had an experience once where I had about 6 weeks before a show, and what happened was I spent the bulk of that 6 weeks sat down playing, just going through the songs. I got to a point where I was really proud, and I felt ready. I felt really confident. But then 3 days before the show, count them, 3. I'm not joking now. I stood up and I attempted to play as if I was on the stage. My playing sucked. It sucked shit. So then what I did was, luckily, I managed to pull the show off all right, and being the front man and guitarist as well, where I'm up at the mic. But anyway, I had 3 days before the show, and I managed to cram in all the practicing. It was quite stressful, but I managed to pull it off. But if I'd have gone back over those 6 weeks and done more standing up and practicing, then I'd have done a lot better. I'd have felt a lot more comfortable in my performance. Now, what I would suggest quite strongly, and what would be a good idea, is when you're practicing, if you're running through songs and that, they're quite important into your band and things like that, then spend the first hour or so or whatever, or the first part of your session, whatever you're doing, sat down playing, trying to iron out all the just get your technique nice and tight, sort of thing, and then go through those techniques or songs again, but do it stood up, and go over it as many times as you possibly can, whatever you've got the time for, basically, but make sure it's productive. And if you do that after about a week, it'll start, it should do. Everyone's different, of course, but it'll become second nature to you to be stood up and playing. It will just become routine, and it should do. Okay, now for a riff, playing while stood up. And some single note stuff. And you do that sort of pattern anywhere at the fretboard. When you're stood up on stage in a band, when you're going absolutely mental, totally crazy, rocking out, headbanging, all that kind of stuff, running around the stage, walking up and down here, there and everywhere, everything on your guitar playing gets affected. When you're sat down, however, you're in a stationary position, and you can hold your guitar still, and everything is affected from the height you hold the guitar and the angle that you're holding it, where you get to approach your playing from that kind of position. Whereas you stand up and start doing all the crazy shit, you really are going to notice a complete difference. It's pretty damn obvious. But the more you do that, the more you practice on your feet and walking up and down, practicing as if you're playing live, rock out a little bit, really get into a good groove, then it'll help you out a hell of a lot when you've got a show coming up. Right, so now we shall break down the riffs for you. Hopefully you can see my fretting hand and picking hand at this camera angle, and you can see them both simultaneously, so I can show you it in one. Right, okay, so nice and slowly. So the actual technique in the riff there is the slide. That's the first part of the riff, and the second part is this. It goes like this. Make sure you accent when you practice this nice and slow. Practice sliding your chord, and make it as strong as you possibly can. And then on the last part of the riff, back to the chord, back to the open chord there, the open E, and then the F sharp there. It's a very simple riff, but the technique is quite important in order to get the riff accented with the proper kind of tension that it should have. So when you play at full speed, it creates the effect. Okay, now the single note stuff. I'm alternating the fingers here, so sorry, talking over, I shouldn't do that. Sorry, excuse me, do that again. End it on the note there. You can do a bend. You can do a lot of different variations like that. If there's enough space there, I'll do a slide. Well, I'll show you that further up the frets, because you can do that anywhere. But you can either have the option to either finish with a note and do what you want with it, or a chord. Do that. It's quite hard. It's quite a tricky technique, actually. I might have a slight tuning issue there, so I'll have to check that in a minute. So. Yes, it's out of tune. Hopefully it should be better now. Slightly better. It's also in the way you hold the chord. Now, sometimes you hold it too hard. You know, even for a guitar player that's been doing it for a long time, it's like. But that's where tuning is important there, like, you know. But issues do happen a lot. But anyway, back to the technique. Okay, so that technique, and when you work it out fast, and you can do it anywhere on the fretboard. You can do it here. You can start with a note like that if you want to. But for practice purposes, best to start with a. And again, you got room there, so I'd finish with a slide. And the further up the neck, the more room you got to slide there. Now, if I was using that in a solo, even though this is mostly a rhythm guitar lesson, you know, but at the same time it can be used in a solo too, so. But enough of that, so. What you can do with the chord, and sliding a chord is pretty powerful as well. But if you're going to use the chord, always practice nice and slowly so you can actually catch it. and sometimes I have to slow down as well, like, and every other guitarist also. Vary speed. Also use your pinky as well, you. Other notes too. All kinds of variations like that. But start with a basic one that you feel comfortable with just to begin with, because there are some players that have never done this kind of stuff before, and it might be a little bit weird to them. So it's a good, if you're one of those players, it's a good idea to really slow down, like, and of course, for any player that's been going for a long time, none of us know everything because there's so much to do on a guitar and to learn that it's kind of impossible to get everything right, to get everything down in a lifetime possibly. So, and this is what's fun about learning the guitar or learning any musical instrument really, that there's always, from a musical perspective, there's always so much to learn, and the challenge and the learning curve is endless. But that is what I like about it. That's what I find fun, and that way things don't get boring or tiresome or tired, sort of thing. So, okay, so hopefully these techniques will help you.